Hello, welcome to the Rising Sun Tavern. My name is Heather. I'm a guide here at the Rising Sun Tavern, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about tavern life in the late 18th century and early 19th century. Now, this was originally not a tavern. This was the home of Charles Washington, who was George Washington's youngest brother. And if you'd like to hear a little bit more about him, you can come see us on our tour. Quite an interesting person. He was very active here in Fredericksburg, very politically involved, and also a gentleman and involved in the Revolutionary War in several other ways. So our tavern life here, taverns in the late 18th century and early 19th century were sort of a hub of social activity. The idea of the tavern is a combination of several things. You have the idea of an inn, which is where you would sleep like a hotel. You have the idea of an ordinary or a public house or pub, which is the idea of eating and drinking. And so a tavern really kind of becomes a combination of these things. So that was very important in that time during the Revolutionary War, because this is where a lot of our founding fathers are planning the Revolutionary War, are in taverns, so that cannot be understated. So we're going to talk a little bit about tavern fare and tavern drinks. The tavern fare in this area would have been much available as far as it being towards a rural area. There would have been local sources such as deer and fish, things that could be locally gathered here, but Fredericksburg was a bustling little port town at the time. We were in one of the innermost port towns in the Virginia colony, so this was sort of your last stop shop before you headed west by land. We were getting imports from England, and we were also getting some imports from the Caribbean at the time. So the Caribbean, what we're getting is more expensive things. We're getting our citrus fruits, our sugar, pineapple, things that would not have been readily available here. Also, most taverns usually had what was called a kitchen garden, where you're growing local vegetables. Things like cucumbers and lettuce would have been in season pretty much the whole year. And then we get some other things that just come in occasionally. Raspberries were quite a desired thing, and they usually peak in about June. So these would have been things that you would get every once in a while. Now, depending upon whether you're in a bustling port town or you're in a more rural area, the fare is going to typically change. If you're in a more rural area, you might get just one set price menu and one meal where everybody gets the same thing, sometimes referred to as a pre-fee menu. And then there's something called a bill of fare, which is where the food and drink are changing seasonally. And then also, you know, if you are in a more busy city and getting those imports, you're probably going to have a lot of choices like you would today. All right, today we have our Glascow Punch, which is called that because it originated in Glasgow, Scotland. This is a rum punch. Rum was actually coming from the Caribbean at the time, made from molasses that was processed from the sugar plantations. We also have our limes right here, and we have our lemons. Now, citrus fruit was very expensive. It was coming from the Caribbean as well, so these would have been expensive to import. So this is going to be a desirable punch, and we also have our sugar. Sugar did come in a cone like this to make it easier to pack and ship, and then you would simply clip off pieces as you needed it. So what you do when you make the Glasgow Punch is you are going to make 1 in 6 parts. So for every drink that's in there that makes about 6 servings, it's going to be roughly 1.5 ounces of the rum. So you pour your rum in it, and then you add your water, and then your citrus fruit you're actually going to strain and make a pulpy substance that they refer to as a sherbet, which is not what we would think of today. And then you're going to allow that to settle, mix it in. You can add some spice if you want to, although the recipe does not necessarily call for that. And this punch is served cold. A lot of punches back then were actually served at room temperature. So this would have been iced with a large block of ice. It's warm out today, so we do not have our ice today. And then you're going to let this steep, so you really get the citrus flavor in the punch itself. We hope you really enjoyed today and learning about 18th century and 19th century tavern life. If you'd like to learn more, we certainly encourage you to come get a tour. We talk about Charles Washington and his activity here in Fredericksburg, George Washington's youngest brother. And then we also talk a little bit more extensively about tavern life, specifically about the tavern fare, tavern drinks, and the importance of taverns during the American Revolution. Please check us out on our website. It's washingtonheritagemuseums.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook. That is where we list a lot of our events, and we do have tasting events where we serve 18th century drink recipes. So be sure and check those out, and please come and see us. Thank you.